start with a brief introduction and background of the Ministry of Environment. Laying this background will give us a better understanding of our vision, our mission, and our mandate at the Ministry of Environment and the build-up to the Paris Agreement and the giant strides that Nigeria has made and has ended up with a climate change legal framework, which is one of the greatest achievements of President Muhammadu Buhari and shows that Nigeria is fully committed to the Paris Agreement. So the concern to protect our environment and the commitment of the federal government, to the constitutional provision of Section 20 of that constitution that states the state is empowered to protect and improve the environment and safeguard the water, air, land, forest, and wildlife of Nigeria, gave rise to the creation of the Federal Ministry of Environment in 1999. This was to ensure the effective coordination of all environmental matters which were hitherto fragmented and resident in different ministries. The Ministry of Environment's vision is to be a nation that develops in harmony with nature. And also our mission at the Ministry of Environment is to ensure environmental protection, natural resources conservation, and sustainable development. Some of the mandates of our ministry is to secure a quality environment conducive for good health and well-being of fauna and flora. Also, the sustainable use, promotion of the sustainable use of our natural resources. Another one that's of importance to us is restoring and maintaining the ecosystem and ecological process and preserving of our biodiversity. In the Ministry of Environment, we're broken down to 7 technical departments. We have the Department of Pollution and Environmental Health Control. We have the Department of Forestry. We have the Department of Erosion, Flood, and Coastal Management Department, and also the Environmental Assessment Department, and of course, the most important, the Department of Climate Change, and not forgetting the Certification, Land, and Degradation Management Department. Besides the technical department, we have agencies of the Ministry of Environment. We have 3 regulatory agencies: the National Environmental Standards and Regulation Agency, NESRIA. Then for the oil sector, oil and gas sector, we have the National Oil Spill Detection and Regulatory Agency, NOSDRA. Then for biosafety, we have the National Biosafety Management Agency that regulates the use of GMOs in Nigeria. Then we have our National Park Service. This agency covers our forest reserves and protection of our biodiversity and manages our national parks in Nigeria. We have 7 national parks now, and Mr. President has approved 10 more national parks from existing forest reserves in Nigeria. This will increase our biodiversity coverage. Then we have the Environmental Health Officers Registration Council. This agency has been in the forefront of COVID-19 actions in Nigeria. They have been the ones in charge of contamination and decontamination of various offices in Nigeria. And at the moment you're aware of the cholera outbreak, they are the ones who are tackling the cholera outbreak in various states of the Federation. Then we have the Forest Research Institute. This is based in Ibadan. The Forest Research Institute, from their name, you can tell the importance of their work. Then we also have the, what was the 7th one now? Yes, how can I forget GGW? we now have the Great Green Wall, the National Agency for the Great Green Wall. All these agencies add to the work of the ministry. Then I'll go to our major policy initiatives. This has been in the area of environmental standards and regulations, also flood and erosion control, then issues of climate change, then of course pollution control and environmental health, then coming to desertification and droughts. But the use of our resources is a high priority for the Federal Ministry of Environment. So we're focusing on formulating and enforcing policies and regulations around these areas I have mentioned: climate change, sustainable waste management, biodiversity and conservation, sustainable environmental management, reclamation and rehabilitation of degraded land. We've also come up with a lot of policies that we have to implement, but this implementation cannot be done just by the federal government alone. It has to be done by the subnational of the states. The main one is the National Policy on Environment, which guides all that we do. Then we have the National Policy on Solid Waste, also the National Policy on Plastic Waste Management, and of course the National Forest Policy. And the National Policy on Climate Change. Also, we have come up with a national policy or an action plan on gender and climate change for us to mainstream gender into our climate change activities. But we all know Nigeria faces environmental challenges, and we are very vulnerable to climate change. So these environmental challenges is what the Ministry of Environment is tackling, and we have come up with strategies for addressing these environmental challenges. And these strategies that we have developed will be along the 9 priority areas outlined by the current administration. So in the quest for a green recovery, the ministry recognizes the need to establish the necessary policy, strategy, policy and financial mechanisms that will enable Nigeria have in place all the appropriate environmental governance structure that we need, and at the same time reduce carbon emission and pollution, enhance our energy resources efficiently, and also prevent the loss of biodiversity in the ecosystem. We will also be building a thriving and sustainable economy through our biocircular economy and our circular economy strategies and plans that we have put in place. We will be enhancing social inclusion and reducing poverty through all our climate actions and environmental actions. We will also be helping to enlarge agricultural output for food security through the programs that we have been putting in place. But our main priority projects that we've done for the ministry from 2019 to 2023, the major one and the most important is the acceleration of the implementation of the Ogoni cleanup and also the Great Green Wall project. We're also promoting and setting targets for tree planting. We're prioritizing and enforcing implementation of the gas flare prevention of waste and pollution regulations that we had in place in 2018, and this will be working closely with the Ministry of Petroleum on the issue of ending gas flare. Then we're also going to implement a comprehensive program on the domestic use of liquefied petroleum gas. We're working with the National Assembly to be able to implement all relevant bills that are relevant to our environment. Then also we're going to ensure we ensure compliance with extant domestic legislation and global environmental agreements. So implementation of all these strategies, which we hope to do in collaboration with the states and the private sector, will create jobs for the Nigerian youth and take a lot of them out of poverty. So for us in the Ministry of Environment, our major achievements have been in the area of flood and erosion control. We have a project being run under the Ministry of Environment, but with the World Bank assisted program, which is the new MAP, the Nigerian Watershed Management Project. And we have recorded a lot of successes on this, and we have been able to install 27 flood early warning systems, and we have restored hundreds of erosion sites. I don't know if the picture is there for us to see the before and after pictures of that, of one of the projects we've done, because this is an issue that has been coming up, the issue of flood, especially in the southern areas of Nigeria. Then besides erosion, we also have our Great Green Wall initiatives in the north. These initiatives have been helping our rural people to manage their land sustainably and also improve on land degradation. This, I hope, we will have a separate media briefing and have the media join us on our inspection sites of the Great Green Wall projects in the 11 frontline states from Borno to Sokoto states. So also in the reclamation, I've talked of the Ogoni cleanup, which we are going to be accelerating for us to turn the land into clean and arable land that will be good for agriculture for our people. So let me come to the main area of focus, which is addressing climate change. So in recognition of the consequences and adverse impacts of climate change, Nigeria is extremely vulnerable to climate change. The Ministry of Environment is deeply committed to implementing the overall mandate of the Climate Change Convention and its protocol. So I said earlier that we have the revised National Policy on Climate Change, which we had approved by the Federal Executive Council in 2021. So the objective of this policy was to implement mitigation measures and promote low carbon and high growth economic development, and also strengthen our adaptation towards a sustainable climate resilient development pathway, which we have done. So this policy, with its pragmatic plan of action, is expected to run between 2021 to 2030. We've actually started running it, but with the climate change legal framework, this will give added impetus to this, because the legal framework will help us to mainstream all our responses and actions into government policy formulations and implementations for us to tackle climate change at all levels of governance. So also our revised NDCs, we can't mention climate change without talking about our revised NDCs and our pledge to reduce emissions by 20% below business as usual, unconditionally, and also to reduce by 47% conditionally with commitment from international support for mitigation and adaptation strategies. In our NDCs, we included two other priority areas, that is water and waste. We have nature-based solutions. That brings me to when I was talking about biodiversity conservation. Then we have adaptation and resilience. We also have the gender and green job assessment that we're meant to do under this. So in the revision of our revised NDCs, we also included the short-lived climate pollutants as additional gases while setting targets for methane reduction. You've all heard about adaptation and mitigation. Nigeria has developed an adaptation communication document. This will highlight our adaptation efforts to the impacts of climate change. This we have developed and we will start implementing. Under our NDCs, and our climate action, we established a National Youth Climate Innovation Hub to give the youth a platform where they can develop climate-smart, innovative solutions to climate change, and they have done this. Then also, we obtained, in area of climate finance, we obtained a Green Climate Finance Fund, to support our adaptation plans and processes. And we're putting administrative structures in place to initiate and implement these plans. The next slide, where are we? Yes, now we go to the COP26 that we all attended. Mr. President made a strong statement and commitment to the Paris Agreement on behalf of Nigeria for us to commit to getting to net zero by 2060. The plans we have in place to get that, or let's say the pathway to net zero by 2060, is through our energy transition plan, which we have put in place. And this energy transition plan covers the power sector, it covers buildings, it covers transport and oil and gas industry. Then also the transport sector. If some of you were at COP26, you would have seen the presentation made by the DG of the National Automotive Development Agency, Jelani. Electric cars are being manufactured in Nigeria as we speak. Part of this will key into our race to net zero and our zero emission initiatives. Then also Nigeria is taking a lead in setting an example for other African countries with the establishment of a narrative around what a developing country's specific ambitions for decarbonization will be. We are setting up our decarbonization pathway as we have the legal framework to do this. For the area of energy and clean energy transition, we have come up with data and plans and policies for us to achieve net zero by 2060, and we'll be rolling this out in the first quarter of 2021 for us to achieve a net zero and a sustainable environment. So I would like to end by saying, because I'm more interested in taking questions from the House, there are areas of concern and areas of focus. I would like to end that Nigeria has delivered the loudest statement after COP by Mr. President signing the climate change bill into an act, and we have shown a very strong commitment to the Paris Agreement. So the next step now, under the Ministry of Environment, is implementation of all these commitments and strategies and national plans we have in place. So for an environment that we can live in harmony with, each and every one of us has to be a part of that sustainable environment that we all dream about. We must implement and accelerate the Great Green Wall Project, which is basically to review and reverse the desertification and land degradation in the northern parts of Nigeria. And we must accelerate also the Ogoni cleanup to make sure that the remediation is completed in time for the good people of Ogoni. But at the same time, as we are talking about the remediation and going about the remediation, we must tackle the issue of artisanal refining, because as we are cleaning, the people, our young boys in the Niger Delta are still polluting, and we ask that this must stop for us to have a clean and decent environment. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. The Honorable Minister, you may wish to...
Between the Ministry of Petroleum Resources, Ministry of Environment, and the oil company involved. It goes beyond the oil companies giving out palliatives. They must put measures in place to prevent such accidents from happening. They are also claiming that that spill was due to sabotage by the local communities. So we're going to have a targeted approach to illegal bunkering, tampering with oil installations, and artisanal refining in the Niger Delta to get alternative livelihood for the young people of the Niger Delta, so they will desist from this because it's further polluting the environment. The situation has been brought under control. I got a briefing from the DG of NOSDRA, who was out on the field. So now work has to start with the proper cleanup. On the issue of the companies not having competence, Ministry of Environment doesn't issue the oil operating licenses. That is a question you have to take up with the Ministry of Petroleum. Ours is to safeguard and manage the environment, but it's a sad situation that we do not need in Nigeria, and we must put measures in place. And incidentally, right now we are trying to amend the NOSDRA Establishment Act to give them more powers to put punitive measures in place for the oil companies that are responsible for the oil spillage that is going on in Nigeria. We need to have a stronger legal framework in place to protect the environment from oil spills. Then on the issue of gas flaring that Reuters talked about, we are engaging with the Ministry of Petroleum on this, and you know they have come up with their gas master plan. So all this we need to integrate into our energy transition plan and our decarbonization plan to get to net zero, to see how we will harness all this. Instead of flaring, harness the gas. We're talking about alternative cooking for our rural women. Nigeria has the highest rate of death from smoke-induced illnesses. So if we can have the LPG cooking stove initiative accelerated, expanded, and upscaled, we will be able to get our gas initiative in place. And also you've heard of the NMPC talk about their CNG conversion. All this feed into the gas flaring issue that we do need to end. We cannot make commitments to net zero, commitment to sustainable environment, and we are still flaring gas. And also bear in mind that gas will be one of the transition fuels that we will be using, because Nigeria is more of a gas country than an oil country. So we must make use of our gas in a sustainable way. Thank you. So let's go to the third question. Start with the last one. The issue of the suit, do you know the cause? Artisanal refining, Bofaya. Let me call it the local name. For those of you from the Niger Delta, you know what Bofaya is. I have had engagements with the River State government to tackle this issue. We've given different scenarios of how to get the young boys who are engaged in this to form themselves either into cooperatives, if we consider to give them licenses for modular refineries, so they do it in an environmentally friendly manner. The cause of Port Harcourt suit is the artisanal refining and the burning that is going on. The Ministry of Environment is already engaging with the artisanal refiners. Even the SSA to the president on Niger Delta, Senator Ita Enang, has had meetings with me, and NOSDRA, is the DG of NOSDRA here? Yes, the DG of NOSDRA is here. This is an issue that the federal government is looking into, but in collaboration with the state government. If we do not end the artisanal refining, we cannot stop the Port Harcourt soot. Those particles are from the way they are burning crude oil and other things they use for their illegal refining. Then on the issue of the update on the Ogoni cleanup. The cleanup cannot be achieved in a year or two. This is a long-term process. The acting project coordinator of HIPREP is here, so he can give you a brief update, 3 minutes, Prof. a brief update on where we are, and to also inform the gentlemen of the press, if you have your correspondence in the River State, I will be having a stakeholders engagement with the people of Ogoniland, those in the 4 local governments where we are having the cleanup. So I hear directly from them, know what their needs are, and see that we fully implement the emergency recommendations that UNEP have put forward. I had a meeting with UNEP as I fully came on board to get their own assessment of how far government has gone. And I'm glad to say that one of the major emergency projects that we're meant to do besides the cleanup was the provision of water. Their water is contaminated. So federal government, through HIPREP, has already commissioned 6 water projects, Prof, am I correct? Yes, they're already in place, and 12 more are going while the cleanup is going up. And the cleanup, we need to involve the community to be part of that cleanup. This is what we are doing to accelerate that. Here will tell you the areas. I think 57 sites were awarded. How many have been certified by NOSDRA? Please give the media a brief update on that.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Shikolo, I'm the acting project coordinator of HIPREP, and I just want to give you a brief. We have altogether about 65 identified sites by UNEP in the bucket for cleanup. And today we have started working on 25 of them. Basically, we have lotted these sites in a way that enables cleanup and contracting to be facilitated. In the first batch, where we identified what we call simpler sites, we had 8 of them, and we added 4 more, making 12. So in the first batch, we had 21 lots, and we had another 29 lots, making altogether about 51 lots. And that covered about 25 sites altogether. And the approach to remediation is what we call bowel remediation. We have various forms of remediation. We have biological options, we have chemical options, we have thermal options, and we have physical options like soil washing. We chose bowel remediation because it is the most environmentally friendly option of remediation, because it works with nature. It works in agreement with nature, and the idea is you are stimulating indigenous microbes. Okay, so basically in the first 21 batch, the lots, we cleaned up 18 of them, and the 19th will be completed in the next 2 weeks. And in the second batch, we have cleaned 16 of them. We have cleaned 16 out of the 29. And in the next 2-3 months, we will be completing all the outstanding ones. And then we shall be moving into the more complex sites where we have groundwater impacts. So, and we have ensured that in the course of bowel remediation, the system is engineered to prevent secondary pollution. So we have the bowel cells, and we also have what we call a secondary containment barrier to ensure that during the difficult periods like rainy season, where some areas are liable to flooding, we're able to control what we call cross-contamination. Thank you.
That provide the basis for government to take gas at flare and monetize it. The Federal Ministry of Petroleum Resources, under the direction of Mr. President and the coordination of the Minister of State, embark on implementation through a platform of program, what is called Gas Flare Commercialization Program. And that is the first and the most unprecedented gas commercialization program in the world, where the World Bank and all other development partners came and supported and worked with Nigeria to be able to mature that. So in summary, that program designed an open, transparent, and competitive bidding mechanism where private sector, qualified private sector participants can actually come, take those flares, deploy modular processing systems, and monetize them. And it's a record to say that the Ministry of Environment under the defunct Department of Petroleum Resources, all through last year, embarked on that journey, organized call for bids for competent companies. Companies responded, and it progressed through the commercial bid processes. And we are now at the last stage where competent and qualified companies will actually be licensed to uptake those flares and then deploy processing mechanisms that can allow them to monetize it. But Nigeria have gone beyond that, because this whole perspective is unhinged on Petroleum Act. And we're all aware that Mr. President broke the jinx and made another unprecedented history by driving the delivery and assent of Petroleum Industry Act 2021. One of the cardinal principles at the core of Petroleum Industry Act is the need to necessarily deliver gas as a fuel that will catalyze the growth of Nigeria's economy. Use natural gas as an enabler to create direct prosperity linkage between oil and gas industry operations and the life of a common man. To be able to do that, the law provides a very robust fiscal mechanism to enhance the development of gas resources in the offshore, in the upstream environment, and also create a processing mechanism that can allow the midstream to work and downstream, so that at least Nigerians can have lower prices for gas fuels, and that can drive the economy. Of course, to be able to do that, Petroleum Industry Act 2021 had very, very strong provisions that does not only frown against gas flaring, but also strongly prohibits the flaring of gas. Because every industry player is mandated to provide what is called a gas flare elimination plan. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Mr. Horatius, what you've just described, I got a briefing from the DG of Nostra, and what I saw in terms of the pollution, either through oil refining, through illegal oil refining and otherwise, the devastation of the Niger Delta is massive. As we are cleaning up, what we are cleaning up is minute compared to the devastation going on now. So it's something that government has to tackle head on. I wish we had put the pictures. There was a picture I saw. It was like a Hiroshima site. You remember Hiroshima in Japan? It was terrible. So this is something we have to tackle head on. We're beyond talking and having workshops. Then on the issue of penalties, that's why I had mentioned earlier the review of Nostra's bill. If you know, most of our acts were passed years ago. So you find maybe they'll give 100,000 naira fine. Anyone can pay that and go back and repollute. So we need to put stiffer penalties in place, build the capacity of NOSDRA, which is a regulatory agency in the oil sector, to have the teeth to be able to bite without enhancing their capacity and reaffirming the legal framework, getting it stronger. They can't do much. These are areas we're looking into. It has to stop. And at the same time, if we do not engage with the communities to stop this, what is the alternative for the boys in the Delta, if we look at it? So government is working on creating alternative livelihoods for them so we can move them away from illegal refining and further polluting the environment. And for the Ogoni community, you'll be surprised that they have become like environmental custodians, because they have seen the cleanup going up, going on in their villages, and they've seen the difference it makes. So most of the artisanal refining going on, it's not going on anymore in the affected Ogoni areas where the federal government is working. It's in other states like Bayelsa and other areas in River State. The alternative livelihoods could be, if you look at the components of the UNEP report, we have the mangrove restoration project. Remember, the Niger Delta area is full of mangroves. And through these mangroves, the people rely on it for their livelihood. That's where they do the shrimp farming, oyster farming, fishing, and all that. So there's a mangrove restoration program for the Niger Delta we are going to implement for these boys to be gainfully engaged in replanting those mangroves. Then also in the surveillance of the sites, of the Ogoni cleanup sites, these boys should be gainfully employed by the contractors, not just the project coordinating office, by the contractors who are doing the cleanup. Priority should be given to the local people in that area. There are also another component where we train them in agriculture. We're meant to have a soil management center and a center of excellence where we teach these boys about remediation and environmental protection and other skills that they can employ. This I'm sure we have not. If we had implemented this from the word go before the cleanup, things would have been better. It's never too late. Now we are working on getting that done. There's more engagement with the local communities. Yes. I think I've covered all the questions, or is there anything I left out? Erosion control. Oh, that is our major area. One of the key successes that the Ministry of Environment has recorded is in the area of erosion control, together through the new map project that is funded by the Ministry of Environment. But of course, the funding is never enough. Is never enough for that. So besides investing in green infrastructure and tackling erosion, we're looking at the green side of it, how we can use shrubs, teach the communities how to use shrubs to stop erosion to an extent. But through the Ministry of Environment, new map project, and the Office of the SGF, the Ecological Fund Office, they have all collectively been tackling erosion projects, especially in the southeast, and of course my state, Anambra State, which is the home of erosion. That we have been, yes, that we have been tackling. It's an ongoing. I can't give you the figures off my head, but on the index of what I have read, we have the highest rate of it. We have the highest rate of smoke-induced deaths. No, you can't say 50%. Say probably, let's say probably 3% of our people, and these are mainly women. These are mainly women. That's why the Clean Cook Stove Initiative and the LPG Cook Stove Initiative is key to reversing these deaths and also protecting our biodiversity. We have not carried out a full environmental impact assessment. This takes years to carry, but eventually this has to be done. So we understand the level, we know the level of degradation and know where to have our intervention. In the area of forestry, some of it has been done. The mapping of the areas under forestry have been done through the RED Plus program. But when it comes to environmental degradation assessment in the southern area, I'm sure you're thinking of the Niger Delta. Besides, from the spills, I know, that has not been concluded. Besides the UNEP one that we have gotten for this area. Nembe spill or the Santa Barbara spill in Nembe, the same one? That's what I said, the ministry. I don't get you. OML 49, what? Mm-hmm. No, our workers, Nostra staff, are on ground right now as we speak. Is DJ Nostra here? Because I had wanted to visit and they said our staff are already on ground taking records in place. Yeah, go ahead. And the update on that.
Thanks for checking out SYMFONI on YouTube. Please be sure to subscribe and like our videos for updates.